Hello guys, welcome back to my YouTube space. Now the video I'm going to show you today is a video of two ladies. They are talking about some things, but in the midst of their talk they talked about racism, and one of the ladies said that black people enjoyed racism, and this is where he went wrong. I want you to watch this video, then we talk about it.
If we go back like a couple hundred years, it was pretty normal to own slaves. Is that right or correct?
Why are we talking about slavery?
Because I'm showing you why the ad populum fallacy is a logical fallacy.
Honestly, back then, a lot of black people participated in the slave trade themselves, so...
Yeah, that doesn't make slavery right. Are you trying to defend slavery?
It was a product of the time, dude.
Are you trying to defend slavery?
Did you not see Matt Walsh's new video on this topic?
I did, and I think that defending slavery is cringe as
defending slavery, but I think we're illogical if we didn't realize that a lot of black people enjoyed being slaves back when slavery was a thing.
How do you know that black people enjoyed being slaves?
I mean, it's just in history. I've read about a lot of black people not only participated in capturing slaves, but a lot of black people enjoyed being slaves. Because of course, when you're really? Brought up doing something like being a slave your whole life, it's all you know. I'm sure a lot of slaves probably enjoyed it and were happy because that's the only lifestyle they were aware of.
That's crazy.
Can you not think like that? Is it really that dense?
I have never heard of somebody enjoying having to work countless hours on a plantation, being dehumanized and whipped and told they're not human, and being beaten within an inch of their life, and being
saying that
I don't think that people enjoy that.
You can't deny the fact that there were probably slave owners that, just like there were really bad ones, there were probably slave owners that probably treated their slaves really nice too, right? You're not thinking logically. You're being so dense.
So I'm just going to say that in general, I think it's wrong to own humans.
Of course. We're not in that time period anymore.
But you're defending slavery.
I'm not defending it. I'm saying it was a product of the time.
You said that black people enjoyed being slaves.
I think there were probably a good majority of black people who back then were born and raised as slaves, probably because that's the only thing they knew. It was the environment they grew up in. If they had a slave owner who treated them well, they probably enjoyed their lives, a few of them. I think it's illogical to believe that every person who was a slave back then hated their life. I truly think that's illogical. I do.
I'm pretty sure that being owned is not a good thing.
Because you grew up in this generation and this is what you've been taught, and we know these things now.
No,
but back then,
not just because
those societal standards were not created yet.
Not just because I grew up in this generation, but because I can think logically and morally on this topic, and why it is unfair to own another human based off of their birth as having a certain skin color, for example. That's unfair.
I'm pretending
and
I'm
illogical.
saying it's okay to own slaves now, because that's not what I'm insinuating.
You are defending slavery.
I'm not defending it. I'm just giving you the facts. Aren't you all about facts over feelings?
Yeah, and I believe that slavery is immoral.
Right, and I do too. But the fact was, back then, I think you're illogical if you think that some of them didn't enjoy being slaves or enjoy their lives.
Why would anyone enjoy being a slave?
That's the environment you grew up in. That's all you've ever known. So if you grew up in that environment and you have a slave owner who treats you well, that's just all they know. So they probably were happy about it. They didn't know freedom. Why is it so hard for you to understand this?
What does a slave owner treating their slave well look like?
I mean, back then, I'm sure some of them, I'm pretty sure they fed them, right? Or probably that they weren't whipping anybody or not tormenting anyone. Just I don't have specific details for you.
Okay, as long as you're working inhumane hours on plantations, but you're being fed, then that's a good thing.
Again, I'm not saying slavery was a good thing. You're not going to try to make it seem like that's what I'm saying, because I don't know what you want me to say. If you want to believe that every person back then who was a slave hated their life, go.
Welcome back. This is one of the video that I'm ending the week, I'm ending the month in a sad note, because I did not expect that there is someone else somewhere that thought that or is thinking that black people on the face of the earth enjoyed racism.
Well, I think it's wrong to own humans.
Of course. We're not in that time period anymore.
That's crazy. I think it's wrong to own humans. Of course, we're not in that time period anymore. So if we were in that time period, would you feel differently? Would you feel that it is not wrong to own people? In fact, would you feel that it is right to own people? If you think I'm being uncharitable with this, go watch the entire video, because that is just the tip of the crazy iceberg that this lady is riding on. Good on you, Naomi, for not blowing up on this woman. I could never, but I legitimately screamed when this woman said that some people liked being slaves. There was a whole industry centered around catching runaway slaves that turned into the modern day police system. How the Are you going to sit there and say some people liked being slaves as justification for slavery? That's crazy.
Black people enjoyed being slaves because, of course,
when I tell you my jaw dropped, why would you get on the internet and say that? Why would you get on the internet and say that Black people enjoy being slaves? What in your right mind, girl? Girl, what's going on? She said, I'm sure some slave owners were nice. Now also, I don't know what your definition of nice is, but I wouldn't say that disregarding someone's personal freedom, body autonomy, and liberty by buying and owning them is exactly nice. There's no such thing as a nice slave owner. You can't be nice if you own someone. But I feel like this is one of the reasons that this Florida book ban is such a big thing. Our history books are being edited and rewritten, and people are reading them and thinking things like this. Thinking things like slaves enjoyed slavery because they are not getting the full vision of how horrible slavery really was.
we're illogical if we didn't realize that a lot of Black people enjoyed being slaves.
Kelly. Oh, Kelly. There was so much propaganda during that time to make folks believe that Black people enjoyed being enslaved. And during this very weird debate, which if you haven't watched it already, please do, because Naomi leaves no crumbs. You, Kelly, also say that slavery was just a product of its time. The only thing that was a product of its time is the ignorance in believing that Black folk enjoyed being enslaved because that propaganda was all they had access to. Today, now, when you have access to endless research, memoirs, cinema, there is not even a shred of an excuse for this kind of ignorance. Even in your apology, where you correct yourself saying you should have said comfortable instead of enjoyed. Kelly, may I suggest something radical? Like instead of reading the headline of a tabloid article, you read something like Frederick Douglass's memoir. And when you do, try and hold enough empathy to understand the difference between someone who finds moments of happiness within the limitations of their deplorable life so they can survive it, and someone who actually has the freedom to enjoy a comfortable life. Because those two things are not the same.
We're illogical if we didn't realize that a lot of Black people enjoyed being slaves.
Forget about the adversarial troll. She's obviously fishing for the controversy that will end up paying off for her in the future. But let's focus on her message and where it comes from and why it's dangerous. Have you ever heard about the Daughters of the Confederacy? Founded 128 years ago in Nashville, Tennessee, they're still ongoing. Influential women on the south of the United States that managed to win where their husbands lost, which was in the shaping of the minds of the American South. Whitewashing the atrocities of the slave trade and its influence in the American economy, whitewashing the horrors of chattel slavery as somehow a fantasy in which genteel ladies with hooped skirts and broad-brimmed hats strewn with flowers somehow managed to own human beings and still consider them as family. This was in the textbooks of every single one of those adults that you see jeering at Black teenagers trying to go to integrated schools and that are now members of the Senate of the United States, as well as its Congress. But Elliot, that's in the past, you say. Now is it? Look at what's happening in Florida nowadays. Look at what's happening in the UK. Look at what's happening in France. People are trying to rewrite history books for a reason, because it works. Now let's deal with my favorite. I think we're being illogical. Always remember something about logic. Something can be syllogistically correct and wrong, both morally and in terms of factual truth. You can turn any stupid, vile argument into something logical. Slavery in itself, at its heyday in the middle of the age of reason. So logic is not a measure for anything. It's an intellectual exercise that can be connected to reality or completely disconnected by it. Or it can be used to justify the unjustifiable.
I'm not going to edit this video. I'm going to keep it short and sweet just because I want to be authentic. In terms of the debate I had the other night, I stand by everything I said about transgenderism. No matter what peer review study you show me, you're never going to convince me that it's okay for minors to go on hormone replacement therapy and transition to another gender. I just feel like that's something that can wait until 18. And I feel like that's an opinion I should be allowed to have as someone who transitioned as a minor. Whether you agree with me or not, I feel like I should be allowed to share that perspective. In terms of what I said about race, I completely not only did I phrase it the wrong way and I should have said comfortable instead of enjoyed, I honestly shouldn't have said it at all because it wasn't my place. It was something that I read the headline out of in The Atlantic a long time ago, and I didn't really read the article. I think I barely skimmed it, and I should have, because clearly it made me say something that wasn't accurate, and now the internet thinks I'm racist. If you want to believe I'm racist, I'm not going to, I can't make you think differently of me. You're going to think what you want. But I shouldn't have said that, and I will apologize for that and say I was wrong, because clearly I didn't have the...
A lot of Black people enjoyed being slaves back when slavery was a thing.
This is why they don't want to teach critical race theory, and this is why they're politicizing it and bringing it to extremisms, to make sure that we don't have a narrative on our truth, right? Your people dug up mummies and ate them for a beauty standard. Your people captured us, cut off our genitalia, and put them in museums. There are furniture, vintage furniture, that is filled with our hair because your people cut our hair off and use it as plush. You used our skin as leather for book casings. You built zoos and put us next to animals in cages on display. Right? The first pornographic entertainment, earliest, with Sarah Bartman, who y'all cut her genitalia off and used her organs and experimented and put them up in a museum. You used our babies as alligator bait and then proceeded to put them on stamps and use it as a mailing across the world. What is wrong with you? You had picnics under burning bodies. Picnics. Then took pictures of those picnics. Then made postage stamps. Postage stamps. I need you to get into what your grandparents were into. We talk about pathology and we talk about how memories are passed down and fears and stuff. And you wonder why we have animosity towards you today, because the violence is so ancestral that it is in our veins to not like you. It is literally inbred in us. It is survival. Our hair stands up when we're around you. That's ancestral. I need you to get into what kind of witchcraft your people are into till this day, because sex trafficking and collecting embryos and collecting children and women and men and energy. I need you to get into what your people are into. Wake up, wake up, wake up, wake up. We will never forget. We will never be silent. We will always make sure you know. Never.
To own slaves. Is that right or correct?
Why are we talking about slavery?
So I've been racking my brain for about 20 hours trying to figure out, what is it about this video that bothers me so much? Is it the obvious answer, like the Daughters of the Confederacy talking point about slavery? Is that what? Nah, that's not it. Is it the white woman said something racist online? That's a Tuesday. That doesn't bother me at all. So what is it about this? So I start going through the facts. Okay, there was a debate a couple of days ago. This one clip goes viral. This white woman responds to the clip on TikTok, and then she has some sort of like back and forth on Twitter. And then there's another clip that goes viral that's showing the full context of the clip. And I've actually never even heard of these two before this moment, and I don't follow them. And that's it. That's the part that bothers me. I don't know these two, but I know this whole story because this moment is going viral. That's what bothers me. It's two white people having a discussion about black people, and we ain't even in the room for no reason. And it's going viral, furthering their brands off of the discussion of our labor. I bet you can't unsee it. You can't unsee it now. And the crazy part to me is that this white person thinks that they're like doing good, but they're not. They brought up black people for no reason. Not me agreeing with the white race. woman, but why did you bring up slavery? And once you notice this, you will notice that white debaters use black struggle as their moral baseline in a lot of their arguments. They'll talk about Jim Crow, Black Code, Civil Rights Act, slavery. They love talking about all of that shit for no reason. And it's a digital version still using black labor to further a white brand, still to profit off of it, even if it's just social capital, and y'all don't see the irony in doing that. It is mind-boggling once you notice it, because all I'm thinking is, this white woman, I ain't never heard of her in my life, but now she's saying something that is literally taught in Texas school books. Like, there's a lot of nuance to that answer that she gave that you completely ignored in her response. So that is wild to me, because like, you're not adequately equipped to have that argument with her, but you brought it up anyway, and all you did was you gave a white racist woman a platform, a megaphone, and virality a couple of times this week, and we're supposed to give you flowers over that. Black people supposed to just tap dance. I can't believe I'm saying this, but again, she was right. You shouldn't have brought up black people for no reason. I can't unsee it now.
I didn't expect to hear anyone saying that black people were happy to be sold, or were happy to be discriminated, or were happy to be tortured, or were happy to, I did not expect there's a person outside here thinking that it was the best thing of the black people. Now, this lady is talking about black people enjoying racism. And she is not alone, because a lot of people out here, a lot of white folks out here, they think that black people enjoyed what's going on them. Now, when some white people claim that black people enjoyed racism, it's usually rooted in ignorance, denial, or an attempt to downplay the brutal or racial oppression. And this is ignorance. If it's not ignorance, it is lack of education. The way these white kids are being taught, the system is teaching them to believe that black people were happy being slaves. And that's why up to now, some of the white folks are treating us black folks as inferior, as less, because they think we as black people, they believe is that we as black people, we are born to be slaves. And one of the baddest thing is that they are justifying this by the use of the Bible, when they will quote this line that's saying that slaves, you have to submit to your master, and they think they are the master to the black people. And this is bad. When some white people say that they believe or they know that white people enjoyed, it's because of this historical reversionism. Now, some people distort history to make it seem less brutal, often to avoid confronting uncomfortable truths about racism and its lasting effects. Some people, they are ignorance. They are trying to justify how racism wasn't brutal. They are trying to learn and tell us how racism or how slavery was a good thing. They are trying just to justify their things or the history. They don't want to come along, or they don't want to face the reality and the truth about colonization, because they know very well this is a bad thing. And that's why I may say some people are just ignorant. Apart from being ignorant, they lack education. But apart from lacking education, it's just they are naturally like that. Like this lady saying that racism or saying that colonization was not brutal, or the black folks, they loved being there. She even went ahead saying that black people, most of them were born in the houses of slavery and they grew up knowing this, and this is all that they want. So if you tell me this is what they want, that means that you as a white chick or as a white lady, you are happy. Even up to now, you are happy that you or black people were slaves to you, and you are justifying it, and you doesn't feel any sympathy to them, and you doesn't even care, because you think that was their life and your life was better off than them. That's what this lady thinks. And again, instead of acknowledging the harm caused by racism, some may try and rationalize it by suggesting that black people somehow benefited from it. Now, how can black people benefit from racism or colonization or slavery? For example, black Americans, it has been more than 500 years. Black Americans are still suffering. One of the things that they lack is generational wealth. Generational or racial wealth gap between black Americans and white Americans, it's high. Up to now, we still have segregation. Up to now, we still have racism going on. Black people are still suffering in the hands of the white people. Never even in one day that black people enjoyed this. You know, there is accepting your fate, accepting how life is, accepting that you are a slave, but enjoying is something different. Black people did not enjoy colonization, and that's why they went to the forest. I know you are not taught this line again. Black people, black Americans did not enjoy this. And that's why we had organization of Black Lives Matters. We had organization of black folks fighting against injustices, police brutality, fighting against health crisis, education and equality. That's why we had South Africans, black South Africans, fighting against the Jim Crow law or segregation or apartheid. How can you tell me that they enjoyed this? This is the ignorance of highest level. This is ignorance or lack of education, or it's just not knowing the history. She doesn't know the history. And if she knows the history, he was misguided, misinterpretation, or she just have the stereotypes of what's going on. She don't know what she's talking about. That's all I say when I watch this video. We have misinterpretation of culture, resilience. Now, black communities have historically found ways to thrive and create joy despite oppression. Some misinterpret this as a meaning that they were unaffected by or even enjoyed racism, rather than recognizing it as a form of resistance. As I say always, black people find joy everywhere. And that's why right now in the America, Latinos are protesting, but black folks are just sitting quiet saying that we told you. Because black folks can penetrate anywhere. They find ways to seek joy, they find ways to be happy, and they find ways to make things happen everywhere. And some people will misinterpret this by that they enjoyed racism. We have good or popular black musicians in the US. We have good black comedians. We have inventors who are black. They are happy. They are joyful. And this, some white people misinterpret it. One of the white guys said that white people are always miserable and even don't know why. But black people are not always miserable. They are always happy. I even don't know why they are always happy. And yet they have gone through a lot. This lady, I think she was cancelled. She learned it the hard way by saying this. But personally, I think she's just uneducated. She doesn't know what she's talking about. Because when I see people doing these videos on the street asking, what do you know about Africa or the poorest country or which part is this, they even don't know Africa is a continent. They know Africa is a country. They know capital city of Africa is Wakanda. So there's nothing they know about black people. It's only few who wrote this history of black people. They know what being black means. They know what black people went through because they are the one who did those atrocities. But this young lady, she doesn't know what she's talking about. But at the end of the day, that's bad to say. Tell me what you think in the comment section about this video. Until next episode, peace be with you.